This is spoilers for Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga. If you have seen the movie and you want to hear spoilers, listen on. If you haven't seen the movie and you want to stay pure for your first viewing, then don't listen to this because we're going to spoil Furiosa: A Mad Max Saga. Oh boy. All right. This is going to be a long podcast. I can feel it right now.
It's going to be a long spoiler section.
Okay. What do we have to talk about spoiler wise?
Well, okay. I guess I want to get a little bit more into what disappointed me about this movie.
Okay.
And then we can also talk about the things I really liked and the things we all liked that are more specific. But
sure.
Let's start on a bad note. Start on a sour note. So as I mentioned in our main review, I liked the Dementis stuff with young Furiosa because I felt like that was seeing how does she become this hardened person? How does she become this resourceful person? You know, like that was sort of her origin story as a person, as Furiosa. What I didn't find satisfying was then how she became important to Immortan Joe.
Yeah.
And
that's happened fast. They really hit the gas on the story at that point.
Exactly. And she has, I mean, so like, you know, just to get into it, she is essentially traded to Immortan Joe by Dementis as a kid. She's going to be a wife. She escapes. And then I guess she somehow then integrates into like the community as a mechanic. We kind of, that's sort of one of those the advanced time there for a couple of years. She's a mechanic, and then eventually she gets a mentor who is like not Mel Gibson from Mad Max, but kind of looks like Mel Gibson from Mad Max. And this mentor is a war rig driver who becomes her boyfriend, I guess. They can become lovers. And then she becomes the Imperator after that. And I just found that so unsatisfying because at no point are we seeing why Immortan Joe trusts her. And in Fury Road, like he calls on like, you know, he calls her down and says like, Imperator Furiosa, you will drive my war rig to Gastown. You will deliver, you know, it's the mother's milk. It's like definitely precious cargo. So we get the idea in Fury Road that that she's his most trusted driver. Right. And at no point in this movie do we ever see Immortan Joe interact with older Furiosa. Like Immortan Joe and Anya Taylor-Joy never interact at all in this movie. Immortan Joe only interacts with the young actress.
Right. She loses her arm. She comes back and tells him about it. And then we get a montage of like a 40-day war.
Exactly.
Where she puts her arm on. And then the next thing you know, she's tracking down. Right. She's tracking down Dementis.
Yep.
And then a bunch of time passes and you lead into Fury Road.
Isn't it enough that she is the one that captured Dementis and like is torturing him for Immortan Joe to trust her? I mean, Dementis is like his enemy and she ended the war by capturing him.
So then like, give me that. So that back to what James was saying. We never saw.
Implied.
It's implied. Right. So James was saying like in Fury Road, Furiosa says 5 lines about her backstory.
What are those lines, by the way?
I don't remember. Like she says, I was from the green place. I was taken as a child. I don't even think it's 5 lines. It's really like,
is that
I was
all
from
she
the green
says?
place. Do you remember what else she says, James?
No, so there's the scene where she's talking to Mad Max, and then there's also the scene at the electric pole where she's talking to the women from the green place, where she talks about her mother dying on day 3. It's been 7,000 days since she was stolen. There's a couple other like little tiny morsels in that scene as well. It's the combination of those two that gives you a pretty good picture of why she's doing what she's doing.
So like her little speech in Fury Road is essentially what we see in the first half of this movie is young her. And that was fine. I was fine seeing that brought to life. Again, I just did not buy how she then became so important to the Citadel. And that's what this movie could have filled in. Because she doesn't talk about that in Fury Road. She doesn't say, and then I did this, and then Immortan Joe trusts me, or she never says like, I worked my way up to be trusted so I can do this. It's implied that she earns his trust. that's the backstory I want to see. Like, I'm fine seeing a little flesh out of the lines we already get from Fury Road, but then give you the new stuff that's not talked about. And that's where this movie glossed over. And that, right, that's exactly you said, James. That's where we get this montage of like, and then the 40-day war happens. Like, oh, I want to see a 40-day war. And also, no wars in the Mad Max world ever last like more than a day, an afternoon. So I'm also trying to picture like, how does a conflict last for 40 days in the Mad Max world? Because we never see conflicts last that long.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's why this is
I felt like the 40-year war, I don't know. I kind of wish the 40-year war was the back half of this movie. You know what I mean? That felt like it could have brought the same kind of heat that something like Fury Road brought. Clearly that wasn't the story George Miller was interested in telling, because he glossed over it as fast as he possibly could. But
there were little touches that I thought were intriguing. Like, for instance, the history talker or whatever.
Yes.
Had like at one point switched sides. Like he was on Immortan Joe's side at the end.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Well, because he said something at some point like, make yourself invaluable. So I'm sure he was able to like convince Immortan Joe, hey, this is why you need me. Yeah. But
like in the montage, you start seeing him on the other side, like advising other people on Immortan Joe's side.
I mean, he's an old man, and I'm guessing to be old in that world, you have to be able to know how to choose sides quickly.
Sure. I just thought those are interesting little touches that are never like spotlight, but I thought were cool.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm distracted. I'm looking through the script of Fury Road to see if I can get an answer to.
I think it's on page 8 out of 12. If you're looking for the.
The only script I could find looks like literally a subtitle rip.
I will say what did surprise me, one thing I was happy about, but also a little mystified, was how she lost her arm.
I like that.
Yeah, so I liked the fact that she cut it off herself, and like that shows her resilience and like her sense of survival. Yeah. I will say throughout the movie, she's also like tattooing on her arm directions to get back home. So I thought that was going to play into it somehow. Like either A, someone's going to capture her and she doesn't want them to get back there, so she cuts her own arm off, or she gets punished for doing that and they cut her arm off. And it just seemed odd that the arm that she's tattooing directions home is the arm she loses, but they're not connected in any sense.
I thought I made a connection. I made the connection that in Fury Road, she doesn't know how to get home. She knows there's a place that she remembers from her childhood, but she doesn't know how to get there.
Okay.
And so in this movie, she makes the map. She makes the promise to her mom that she's going to find a way back one way or another. 30 years later, or however long the timeline is from those moments, she's got the map on her arm because she's going to make this trip at some point.
Right.
But in order to get free, she's got to lose the map.
Okay.
And so it gave a double reason for her to be armless. There was a detail that I enjoyed that maybe doesn't justify an entire prequel, but I did like it. It was the arm thing.
That's a good point.
That was something that did not make sense to me. Now, I don't have any tattoos. Okay, so Kyle, you can maybe speak to this.
Sure.
But I would think that if I had a tattoo for 15 years on my forearm and then I lost it, I would be able to recreate it. Especially if I initially made that tattoo from memory anyways. I do not know why she would forget what the map looked like, because like looking at it, I feel like in 10 minutes I could recreate it, and she had it for like 15 years, right?
Yeah.
Like you could recreate your tattoos after 15 years of looking at your arm, couldn't you?
Well, I don't have any tattoos on my. I actually have one tattoo on my arm, so a lot of them are on my chest and other places. So
that seemed a little unreasonable to me that she would forget what the map looked like.
Remind me in Fury Road, how does she know how to get back? Because at one point she's on the Fury Road, then she turns east.
She doesn't know. She knows a general direction.
Okay.
She doesn't know.
Yeah, and that's right. She along the way she's like set up trades with people to like pass through here, and that's right. Okay.
Yeah. I liked the arm stuff. I liked the winks here and there to like um the medic from Fury Road,
The
who
organic
is in
mechanic.
this movie.
Yeah.
How he came from what's his name?
Dementis.
Right.
Yep.
Dementis's biker gang. I like the biker gangs. I liked the idea that like that's a motif that follows through these Mad Max movies. Like just the idea of having a biker gang was cool.
The bikes at the beginning, I thought were just super cool design. Like this, how they sounded, the sound design on those bikes, I thought was really cool. Yeah.
I thought the sound design in general, the soundtrack in general, was very Fury Road esque, and so I liked that because I like it in Fury Road. I like to hear. I really like the one sequence that's Fury Road-ish, the stowaway sequence right in the middle, the long war rig sequence with the shiny war rig. Like totally, if you had made these movies in the order in which the timeline lays out, they would make sense to me, even from like a escalating tension perspective. Unfortunately, he didn't make them in order. he made this one after the last one, and so it felt like a little bit of like a wah wah when that sequence was over, because I was like, okay, well, what are you going to do for the finale? Because you basically gave us a third of what you did in Fury Road from an action perspective. And what we got was like CG heavy bullet farm shootout stuff. It's just kind of like, okay.
Oh, with the warrior driving around and the sniper rifle. Yeah.
And a little bit of a love story also, which is not what Mad Max movies have been about traditionally.
Yeah, so it gave you something new. That's great. You love that, James. Something unexpected.
An extension of a story that was new. I'll give you that. But it was wrapped up in a bunch of stuff I already knew about. Same thing with the Chris Hemsworth character. I'll concede, even champion the movie for the new things in it, but there was so much about the main character that I'm supposed to care about that was not new to people like me who love Fury Road.
I'm still so curious what she said about her backstory in Fury Road, because so far all you've said is that she got taken from the green place and her mother died. Did it say anything else, like anything else from the plot of Furiosa besides those two plot points? From your 7 times watching this?
I'm trying to think of if there was anything specific. There's definitely like the my mother died 3 days in, which happens in this movie.
She got taken from the green place and then the mother dies. But then the rest of the 2 hours, was there any plot point mentioned in Fury Road?
Maybe. I don't remember. There might be another one, but there's not 10 more, if that's what you're looking for.
Sure. You just keep saying how like you knew everything that was going to happen in this movie, but after the mother died, what did you know?
No, I knew she was going to end up. So I'm being a broken record here. How she got to Immortan Joe, that was interesting because that's what we didn't know. We didn't know who took her. Dementis took her, new character, right? We didn't know how she became hardened and, disconnected from the world. And we saw that as she saw people being tortured, as she was tortured, as she was sold. That it's all fine. What I didn't get is how she became important to Immortan Joe. I didn't get how she became to hate him. Right? We see that, she's a wife for a hot minute, or a potential wife, and then escapes. Like, we never see her gaining his trust while also like seething with hatred. Because like she betrays him. She betrays him hard. She doesn't just save herself in Fury Road. She steals his wife, or she takes the wives and is gonna rescue them. And like what she's doing, what she does in this movie, she tries to get away for herself, right? We see she tries to escape. It's just her and her non-Mel Gibson boyfriend, and that doesn't go so well. In Fury Road, she takes other people with her. She's not selfless anymore, or she's not selfish anymore. And that is what I wanted. Like, that's what I want from a prequel, is how do we become the person that we saw in this movie? And I got half of it, and I didn't get the other half. And that's what I was missing.
And I'll say that I kind of disagree with Kyle on this one. I feel
Okay.
like I got everything that leads from Furiosa, the backstory that Furiosa laid the groundwork for in Mad Max Fury Road is in this movie for the most part, and then some. Didn't necessarily find the and then some all that interesting. It definitely didn't change my perspective on the Furiosa character or add any element to her that I didn't already get in the bare bones version of it that's in Fury Road. Like the same, everything that was in this movie that was hinted at in the first movie was told exactly how my imagination would have played it out. There was no difference to it. And so
James pictured Thor rescuing her and
no, I'm talking about the stuff that was hinted in the first movie.
Okay.
There were new things about this, new characters that weren't talked about in Fury Road that had interesting elements to it. But again, at the end of it, I was just left with a feeling of what was the point of that? Like, if the point is to build the universe more, to show you some of the places that were hinted at in the first movie, to show you her backstory play out beat for beat, the way they explained it in the first movie, that's what we have here. If people enjoy that, great. I enjoyed it as well, to the tune of 4 stars. But it feels like there's not much here for me. I'm definitely not going to rewatch this one 7 times between now and the next one.
No.
It's not going to happen. Wasn't that interesting overall.
4 stars.
4 stars, though. I still enjoyed it. Still better than most things I watch. Again, impossible to meet expectation. Not being met. Makes total sense. Did not hate it. Enjoyed things about it. Yeah. I also missed the camaraderie from the first one. Like, if you're talking about movies that have, so in the first movie, meaning Fury Road, because these two are definitely linked, you have people who are good people who are coming from different backgrounds, right? And they come together through necessity. And over the course of the movie, you get this merry band of misfits that are just throwing a wrench into the higher powers' plans, right? You've got somebody on the inside from Furiosa's perspective. You got somebody who's redeemed through the War Boy perspective. You got Mad Max, who's just in the middle of this because he's in the wrong place, wrong time kind of thing. You got the girls who, you know, have been victimized, who are fighting for their freedom. You got lots of people who are actually good people from the perspective of the way they're framed in the movie, even if some of them come to it later. There's somebody to cheer for. In this movie, there's one person to cheer for. And it's somebody you already know survives.
No, it's 2 people.
Who?
The Warwick writer.
I guess if you cared about him,
I didn't care
There's
about
2.
him whatsoever.
Did not care about him.
No,
he was,
like,
to me, he was fodder for Furiosa's story.
yeah, Pretoria Jack, I believe his name was, which is maybe one of the dumbest names.
He was a huge drip, which is why we haven't even mentioned him yet. He was just a drip. He had nothing to say.
Right,
I would say.
he was the explanation for why she became a good war rig driver.
Mhm.
Because he was like, "Oh, I'll teach you." I'm like, "Really? That's the best we can do, is that she gets a mentor / boyfriend."
Right. Who's helping her for like not really an explainable reason?
Well, his whole team got wiped out and he needed a new team.
And then he like got the hots for her. And so
No,
that's
I think she showed herself as like kind of fearless and competent during the attack. And then he had no other team. And so he's like, well, I got to rebuild.
Sure. So maybe he's a good guy, even though he works for the bad guys. Is that what we're saying?
No, you just said there's no one in this movie that's like good in relative terms to this world, and there's no one to root for. I was like, well, this guy fits the bill.
Yeah. I mean, I would say he's good in this relative world. I don't think he's a root for. I didn't care about him either.
Yeah. I only cared about him in the context of Furiosa and finding out how her story would play out.
Yeah.
Sure.
And as
Plus the mom, you could root for the mom. She was good.
Yeah.
dead
But
pretty
she also
fast. It's hard to root for the mom when you knew she died when you watched the first movie 3 days in. You know what I mean? Again, if you didn't have that knowledge in your head, then I get it. But I did.
But I appreciated that they showed how determined the mom was to save her daughter.
Mhm.
And right, like they say, we know that she's kidnapped and that her mom dies 3 days later. But to see like this mom's like, oh, I'm going to chase these people for 3 days and I'm
Right.
going to get her back and go into the lion's den to do it. I thought that was impressive. That was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, this movie, when it's at its best, it was when it was focusing on action we hadn't necessarily seen before from other series. A lot of it was action we had seen before from this series, but that's what Mad Max is to me. And so there were moments that I really enjoyed and will want to revisit. I want to revisit this movie anyway, because maybe I'm just too in deep with the original to give it a complete fair shake. But yeah, let's talk end credits.
Yeah. So
Why?
this movie ends with Furiosa taking the wives,
Mhm.
right? If you're going to give me a Charlize Theron cameo, that was your moment right there. Like bring her in for one day, get her back in the makeup, put a ball cap on her and be like, hey, let's just, like they could have, why not do that? Because it ends pretty much where Mad Max begins.
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, that's fine. So we're seeing timeline wise, we're going to Rogue One it. Let's go right into the next movie.
Mhm.
And then we get highlights from Fury Road throughout the credits.
Right.
And I just turned to Megan and I said, the movie really wants you to remember this better movie that came out first.
That's exactly what I
Okay,
thought.
good.
I was
I'm
like,
glad you felt
why
the
would
same
you
way.
play a better movie in your credits?
And like the
than what we
highlights.
just watched?
Yeah, it was so weird.
I've never seen a movie do that. Does anybody remember seeing a movie where, especially a prequel, where they play scenes from the next movie in the credits?
No. Like I at first thought we were gonna get like a Jackie Chan Fall Guy style stunt reel.
I thought it was that too. And
I was
then
like,
I realized
cool, a
they're
stunt
not doing
reel.
it.
Like, no, this is just like desaturated images from the first Mad Max Fury Road. And
Yeah.
at that point, I was like, well, I'm not sticking around. I'm going to the bathroom. I watched this movie a week ago. I don't need to see it again.
Why do you think they did that, Zach? As somebody who's not tied to that movie.
Why not? It's what comes next. I don't know. It seems like such a non thing to me. It's like it's the next thing that happens, so it's like connects the two. I don't know.
So you kind of wish like Revenge of the Sith. Not you wish. What if Revenge of the Sith ended and then starts showing you like scenes from A New Hope?
Cool, go for it.
Go for it. It was weird.
And it's just such a non thing. It's just like, okay, showed scenes from Fury Road. All right.
I didn't knock the film down a half star because of that.
No,
I wasn't upset about it. It just does not make logical sense to me when the only world where that makes sense to me is if you, as a filmmaker or on his team, honestly thought this would be received at the same level that Fury Road was. If you honestly thought that, and that's why it was included, fair. But I mean,
is it not
reeks a little bit of like Lucas to me, where people can't say no? Because if I was on his team, his editing team, and once somebody said, hey, we should put Fury Road action sequences in the credits, I'd be like, why are we doing that? Because it's not that I didn't enjoy what we just made together, but that's a pretty high bar already. People are already going to be making these comparisons. Maybe we don't put better action in the credits than what we actually have in the movie they just watched.
The only movie I can think that kind of does that is Police Story, where its opening credits are a highlight reel. Sorry, Police Story 2's opening credits are a highlight reel of Police Story.
Sure. And then it goes on to not match those.
And then it goes on to
quite
not
as
match.
much.
Right.
Sure.
So I mean, at least this movie put at the end. So like imagine this movie put like Fury Road scenes at the beginning and then went to
Right.
Furiosa. But yeah, I think it's always a bad idea to try and reference your I mean, I don't know. They probably knew that Furiosa was going to be the better movie. It's such a different movie. Yeah.
I mean, in Mad Max 2 Road Warrior, they play sequences from the first movie at the beginning of Road Warrior because that movie was barely released in the United States.
No one
the original
saw
Mad
that
Max.
movie.
Nobody saw it. So when they
Right.
released it in the US, it had a montage of stunts from Mad Max. So there is some precedent to playing stunts from another movie in a Mad Max movie. I just felt I was already feeling that this was not Fury Road, and I was trying to accept it was not Fury Road, and then they started playing Fury Road clips in front of me. And I was like, why would you do that? You're just making me feel more like this is not what I liked about Fury Road.
Triggered you guys.
It did. It doesn't
They
make
showed
sense
you the
to
movie
me.
you
Why would you
liked.
do that?
Showed you the movie you liked, and you're like, how dare they?
No, because they showed me the movie I liked after the movie that was supposed to explain the movie that I like, which I didn't like as
did.
much. It's So
Right. It seems like a risky creative decision, and it's one I would not have made.
Yeah.
So
Just
funny
run
to
the
me.
credits, keep the Junkie XL soundtrack going, and let's get out of here. Maybe you leave the little bit at the end that they left, which
yeah.
is fine.
What is this bit at the end that I missed?
At the very end, they cut to the shot. Remember in Nux's car, the war boy from Fury Road,
Oh, of course, yeah.
he has a little bobblehead that's like a crow beak.
Yes.
You might not remember that from the original, but that's definitely there. They
Okay.
end with that shot. I think the implication possibly being that I know he has 2 more of these planned that he wants to make based on the success of this one. I think one of them might be War Boys related, maybe even Nux related. I don't know.
Because Nux dies in Fury Road. So
Right.
it'd have to be a Nux prequel.
The rumor is that he has 2 more, that George Miller has 2 more planned. One is a prequel, and one is what happens to Mad Max after Fury Road, once he walks away from Fury Road.
What if I don't care what happens to Mad Max after Fury Road and I want a Furiosa 2 with Charlize back in
Sure.
the role after the events of Fury Road?
I mean, that would be cool. At this pace, I don't think we're going to get either.
No. Well, he's 80 years old, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if we do, it probably won't be from George Miller. It'll be
Yeah.
from somebody else picking up the reins, which would be interesting. I'd be fine with somebody committing to making movies like George Miller does, and like aping the style. They changed the cinematographer for this one. Barely noticed.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Zach, did that little stinger with the crow bobblehead mean anything to you as somebody who hasn't watched the first ones in 9 years?
I mean, no, but I looked it up as to what it was and why. But
Sure.
yeah, it was fine.
I mean, I don't know if I need a War Boys backstory. I just figure they're all just irradiated suicide. It's like they're all going to die anyway.
Sure.
You know, they all have cancer and degenerative diseases because they just exist in this wasteland.
Mhm.
So I thought this movie actually did a nice job of showing the dedication of the War Boys when, you know, Dementus shows up and he demands, like, you know, turn over your leaders, I won't kill you. And then, you know, Immortan Joe orders one of his War Boys to death to show, like, this is the army I have. They will die for me.
Do you know that's based on actual history? So there's
No.
a story that Caligula did that, like a foreign ambassador came. And so he
Okay.
ordered one of his guards to commit suicide, and his guards did, to show like how much authority he had over his army.
And I thought that was a cool touch. Like, that helped build the Immortan Joe world. That's cool.
Can we talk about something I loved from this movie that we haven't been able to talk about yet?
Is it Chris
Sure.
Hemsworth's nose piece?
No.
Okay.
I didn't even clock it. while I was watching it.
I don't know
It
why
didn't
they
bother
had-
me at all.
It didn't bother me. I just don't know why they put a fake nose on him.
I think they just wanted to make him a little more ugly.
A little less attractive.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is the wasteland here. Can't have buff models walking around everywhere.
Well, he still has full access to a gym, though.
That's true. I think he's just naturally built.
Okay.
Like somebody on the juice. No, what I liked about this movie that I think brings a new element to the universe, which was a welcome change, was the very end of Chris Hemsworth's character. I loved the idea that like they couldn't pinpoint exactly what happened to him, and that there were all these legends as far as what happened to him, and that the legend that everybody agreed upon for the most part was something so fantastical as to a guy essentially having a peach tree grow from within him.
Yeah.
Is that roughly what happened?
Yeah,
Right?
I think it's exactly what happened. Yes.
Right. I love that because I feel like the series so far has been a sequence of films that are just kind of like little stories about this guy named Mad Max, and they don't necessarily connect, and they don't care if they violate the timeline at all, because these are just kind of like little legends that you're hearing about here and there. But they've never really been fantastical legends. And so I felt like that brought like a new thing to the world, that even though they didn't cement the idea that there's a guy growing a peach tree through his innards, and that's like the way he played out the end of his life, there was enough of a hint there that we could have things that were not grounded in reality in future Mad Max movies, because we're just telling stories here as they've been passed down. And so I liked that. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I've not much to add to that. I thought it was a cool image to end the movie on.
Yeah. Zach hated that part. The one part I liked.
No. The whole movie does. The whole world doesn't make sense to me, because essentially, like, what is it? Like, we're low on water.
You're low
and
on everything.
Yeah, and so people become whatever they become. But like, there are plenty of places in our world that like are low on water and fruit. You know, like people aren't forming like motorcycle gangs and becoming tech punks.
Sure. Fair, I guess.
I don't know. Like, you look at Haiti right now, and Haiti's pretty much run by warlords.
Yeah, and it's just, it doesn't look at all like this.
No. I mean, but
Haiti's not Australia either.
It's true.
I mean, but like, obviously, this is. Would you call these movies science fiction? I think we kind of talked about this when we did our science fiction top 10 sci-fi movies list. Is a post-apocalyptic movie a science fiction movie?
This one specifically is science fiction because there's certainly science.
Yeah,
fiction
I wouldn't
with the robotic hand and.
Yeah,
I wouldn't necessarily call the first movie science fiction,
Okay.
although I'm sure it has shades. But this one, yeah, and Fury Road, and most of what we've gotten after the first movie,
We can dub science fiction. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need Mad Max to be the road. I feel like the road is what we get in an actual post-apocalypse. So that's one thing I do appreciate about these movies, is they don't shy away from the fact that there's like definitely violence against women and there are sexual politics to this post-apocalypse world, but it doesn't seem to like zero in or hang on any of those moments. Like, we just know that there are wives and they are being held against their will and they're being forced to breed. We don't need to see it happening or to like go into the details.
This movie does a little bit cop out when it comes to sexual violence against women. Like, for instance, the main guy, Dementis, like, he protected her and kept her safe, like as a little girl or whatever. And like, that 100% would not have happened. And the movie like did that for the sensibilities of like people watching.
Yeah.
To like, so the movie didn't feel gross. But like, so it was a little bit of a cop out as far as like, yeah, things are terrible, but we're gonna make it okay. You know?
Yeah. Though,
I mean, they gave some backstory for that. Like he had a daughter, and so he's trying to replace his daughter. That was the whole thing with the teddy bear. It was like his daughter's teddy bear.
I don't like the teddy bear thing at all.
and like,
See, the
plus
teddy bear
I
thing
felt like
is a
it
Mad
changed
Max thing
size.
as well.
Oh, is
What'd you
it?
say?
I felt like it got smaller at the end.
well, yeah, perspective. I enjoyed Taylor got bigger. So
No, on him. Like he would have it on him. It just seemed
Oh, I
smaller to
see
me.
what
I
you're
don't
saying.
know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anyways.
But like it was an upsetting visual to see the young actress in the wife's garb with like the chastity belt on.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think oh that was I found that jarring, but not right. I guess not too jarring to offend my sensibilities.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's strategically gross,
Right.
I would say. I mean, there were lots of opportunities for them to show things that I'm glad they didn't show. They didn't show the guy getting dragged around.
I mean, seeing her arm get damaged was pretty gross though. Like that made
But they didn't
both-
show her actually pulling her arm off or something like that. They could have done that.
No, when she had her arm out the window, got pinned by the tire.
Sure.
Like both Meg and I kind of in our seats like recoiled to that. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but most Mad Max movies don't show really disgusting things. They imply them, but they rarely show it happen.
Right. Yeah.
So that made sense to me. Plus, they're trying
She's
to make
really
a
good at making
blockbuster.
robotic arms.
Really good.
Yeah.
Really
Would it
good.
have been nice if we had learned more about that in her time in the Citadel?
It was very well montaged with the 40-day battle or whatever it was called, 40-day war.
The 40-day war. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was looking forward to when she in that final scene with Chris Hemsworth, when she pulls the lawnmower cord on that arm thing. I was like, oh, she's about to do something really cool with this.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then nothing.
No, she takes a teddy bear.
Right. I was kind of like, all right, what was the point of that? I didn't understand it. But was what it was. Anything else? Spoiler that we must talk about. We've pretty much covered everything in my notes. All right. Anybody changing their score?
Nope.
No.
Still 2 3.5s and a 4. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.